The Four Noble Truths are the base of the Buddhism. The Buddha expounded it in his first sermon to his old colleagues, the five ascetics. We can find this particular discourse in early Buddhist scriptures, actually in numerous places in Pali Canon. And we can have fairly good account of the Buddha's teaching by studying the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are Dukkha, Ariya, Satya. We usually translate that like the truth of suffering. There we can get a comprehensive account on the nature of suffering. And secondly, Dukkha, Samudaya, Ariya, Satya. The truth of the origin of suffering. Simply we can say the cause of suffering. Third, Dukkha, Nirodha, Ariya, Satya. The truth of the cessation or the extinction of suffering. Another way we can say that is actually kind of liberation from suffering. Fourth one, Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada Ariya Satya. The truth of the path leading to liberation, cessation or extinction of suffering. You can say the way to liberation of suffering. The first noble truth, Dukkha, Ariya, Satya, is usually translated into English as the noble truth of suffering. However, the English translation doesn't give wider meaning as it is of the original Pali term. The noble truth of suffering, a detailed account of suffering is given. Anyway, some are misled regarding Buddhism and considered it to be a teaching of pessimistic, which is not reasonable at all when considering it in deeper meaning. However, Buddhism is, according to scholars and according to very prominent scholars of Buddhist principles, we can say that Buddhism is neither pessimistic nor optimistic, but realistic. Right, as it points out, the authentic reality of life and universe. Buddhism reveals and discloses all phenomena realistically or objective. Buddhism doesn't take man into unknown end based on faith or a fantasy. You know that when it comes to modern medicine, right? Modern medicine reveals the gravity of cancer, right? The dangerous aspect of cancer is vividly pointed out in modern medicine. Thereby, we cannot say that modern medicine is something miserable. Likewise, even though the reality of suffering is pointed out very comprehensively, right? By taking it to be a reason, we cannot say that Buddhism is pessimistic. But in all other popular religions, that man is guided into unknown end based on faith in God and creation. The ultimate goal or the objective of such religions cannot be achieved in this life. But the ultimate goal of Buddhism, which is mentioned as Nibbana, can be penetrated in this very life itself, right? By means of following the Eightfold Path of the Four Noble Truths, of which we are discussing the first right now. Accordingly, the Buddhism tells us what life and world around us is, and the way to eternal peace, or emancipation, and utmost happiness. The Pali term dukkha means suffering, pain, sorrow, misery, lamentation, agony, distress, and so on. So likewise, we can have different negative terms just to define the term dukkha, which we simply translate to be suffering. The opposite is sukha, which means happiness, joy, comfort, ease, and so on. But the dukkha in the first noble truth, has a deeper and wider philosophical meaning. Right? It cannot be depicted or explained, right, in few words. In the noble truth of dukkha, the true nature of life and external world is vividly and evidently elucidated, expounded, explicated, or we can say very comprehensively explained. Even though the Buddha comprehensively expounds suffering, pain, emptiness, impermanence related to life, right? He doesn't reject or negate the happiness in life. The Buddha tells different forms and ways of happiness. Right? Initially, we are taught materialistic happiness and spiritual happiness. Laymen or householders having the following factors, they have the following factors, right, was preached to be worldly happiness. So we can see these kind of happiness talk about with regard to worldly life. So likewise, we cannot say that Buddhism is only talking about suffering. When it comes to the objective meaning of life, dukkha is vividly explained. But anyway, we can experience different types of worldly happiness, like as you find it here, Atti Sukha, the happiness of possessing righteously earned wealth and property. Right? Being a Buddhist, you know that if he can be happy having things which he earned righteous manner, that is also kind of worldly happiness that one should have. The second is Ananasukha, the happiness of being free from debt. Being indebted is a grief. So if we can lead our life without being entangled in the net of debt in society, that's also can be kind of sukha or kind of happiness that we can worldly experience in this life. And Bhoga Sukha, the joy of consuming of righteously earned possessions. So that means we should be able to consume, because you know that if you are not well, or if you have any other different kinds of restrictions, sometimes even though you have necessary worldly possessions with you, maybe you cannot consume. A bhoga sukha means you should be able to consume the things that you have righteously earned. And anavajya sukha, the joy of leading life of just and righteous manner. So if one can be happy, thinking that he or she leads the life socially expected manner, that is also kind of happiness. Because you know that as a layman or householder, one should have basic needs, earning correct means, and enjoy leading a good life without being a burden to anyone. It's a worldly contented life. It is really needed to promote spiritual life. Buddhism teaches both worldly and spiritual happiness. Buddhism also admits worldly happiness, even though it is not permanent. We can experience that kind of happiness. So actually, Venerable Thera, you also can join. You can unmute your mic and you can join. If you have any comment on this, further to what I am explaining, you can join the discussion and share your opinions as well. The concept of dukkha as depicted in Dukkha Ariya Satya, or the truth of suffering, is threefold. In Dukkha Satya, we can see the suffering is explained in three folds, in three stages. First one, dukkha dukkha. All suffering related to life, right? Comprehensively explained there in that part. And second is viparinama dukkha, suffering due to change or impermanence. And third is sankhara dukkha, suffering due to clinging on five aggregates, pancha upadanaskandha dukkha. So when it comes to dukkha, it means all kind of suffering in life, such as birth, decay, getting sick, aging, death, union with what is displeasing, seeing disagreeable sights, tasting disagreeable food, hearing desirable noise, hearing undesirable noise, coming together with disagreeable people, or association with the unbeloved, or union with what is displeasing, separation from what is pleasing, and enjoyable, or separation from the loved, not getting what is needed or desired, and so on. So here we can see the all kind of a general type of sufferings that we experience in our life. In life, actually, we have to undergo bitter and unpleasant experiences of mental and physical suffering. And all those unpleasant hardships which cause grief, lamentation, distress, sorrow, pain, despair, and so on, are meant here to be dukkha dukkha. This is only one aspect of dukkha, and that's why the term suffering is said to be incomplete in defining the Pali term dukkha. You know that now simply we can say suffering, dukkha is suffering. Even though we translated very simply using that particular English word suffering, we cannot point out the wider meaning given from the Pali term dukkha. Then comes viparinama dukkha, which causes due to constant change or impermanence. Sometimes we experience happy and pleasing moments in life, but we cannot remain in them as they too change. Even those pleasing things are subject to change. The nature of all phenomena in the world is arising and passing away. Nothing stays the same. Even the things we desire to last long change. The suffering and unsatisfactoriness which causes due to change is viparinama. So in everything we can see constant change that can be identified to be viparinama dukkha here. And the third one is sankhara dukkha. Sankhara dukkha has some philosophical meaning. All conditions are sankhara. Things form, both formed and being formed, according to the theory of cause and effect. Right? The formula of dependent origination. Hetuphala dharma. Sankhara accordingly. Pancha upadana or clinging aggregates is sankhara dukkha. Right? In brief, the 5 aggregates are subject to clinging. 5 aggregates which are subject to clinging can be considered to be sankhara dukkha. So it is important here to make clear the 5 aggregates. Anyway, we must understand that just Panchaskandha is not said to be suffering. It causes suffering when clinging. Now you know that now you can see my hand. Now I cannot say that I have any suffering due to this hand at this particular moment. If somebody says you suffer with your hand because with time it's aging, it is not applicable at this particular moment. That is something related to future. Or if somebody can say that your hand can be injured, that is also one can make that idea, having seen that kind of thing in the past. So comparing future or past, one can say that suffering is involved with this particular hand, but actually merely because my hand right now, I don't have any suffering. If I stay without comparing with anything. And now I'm going to point out a particular example. But anyway, this is what I just prepared just to make it clear. Now, you know that just to make a cup of milk tea, we need milk, sugar, tea, boiled water, right? When everything together, we can have a cup of tea at the end. Now, I am going to compare milk to be Rupa, sugar to be Vedana, tea to be Sanya, and water to be Sankara, hot or heat to be Vinyana. When all those things, 5 things, when those when all those 5 aggregates function together, we get this kind of action. So actually, even though we talk about 5 aggregates separately, when it comes to sort of action of outcome derived from all those functioning together, we cannot point out those phenomena separate. But in a cup of milk tea, you can't see milk separately or sugar separately. Then you cannot find tea or tea leaves separately and water separately. So Vijnana is compared to be the heat, right? The warmth. So this is a particular thing that I prepared on my own. But I think you can remember we discussed Panchaskanda even before. Anyway, I'm going to explain those 5 aggregates very briefly so that you can remember. And again, you know that most of the time we have to discuss, we have to expound Panchaskanda in different angles, in different levels. The first is the aggregate of matter, Rupakanda. Physical forms are explained with the analysis of 4 great elements. 4 great elements. The attributes are namely solidity, fluidity, heat, and motion. Accordingly, basic constituents of matter, right? Basic constituents of matter are earth element, water element, fire element, and air element. Anyway, we can divide them just like Rupakalapa particles.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, I can hear. Yes, Revata, you can come up with your opinions. We can hear. Venerable Thero, if you have any idea or opinions regarding what is being discussed, you can come up with them. You can unmute your mic and share your ideas as well. And you know that the material organs of sense faculties are eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. Right? Material organs of sense faculties. Right? When it comes to faculties, they are eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. Their corresponding objects are, that means their corresponding objects, you know, in the external world, a visible form, sound, odor, taste, tactile thing. And mind is also identified to be a separate faculty because corresponding to internal mental objects. The second is the aggregate of sensations, Vedana Khandas. Sensations are three types, right? They are pleasing sensations, unpleasing sensations, or neutral. Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, Adukka Masukha. So when it comes to the aggregate of sensations, we can have three tones or three types in sensations. Sensations generate in the process of contacts, physical and the mental organs are contacted with external objects of the world. Anyway, that sense specific consciousness, you know, that sense specific consciousness arises depending on an internal and external sense basis, right, in the process of contacts. You know that contact is the meeting of an internal sense base, external sense object, and consciousness. Feeling generates, right, depending on contacts, and craving generates depending or clinging on feelings. And the third is the aggregate of perceptions, sanya. Perceptions are also of 6 kinds in connection with 6 internal faculties and the corresponding 6 external objects. They too produce in contacts. Perceptions has the capacity to identify phenomena distinctively or separately. The fourth is the aggregate of mental formations. All thoughts, ideas, concepts, views, opinions, and so on are mental formations. All types of volitional activities are included here. Kamma and Kammapada. Chetanaham bhikkave kammang vadami. Chetayitva kammang karoti kayena vachaya manasa. Dear bhikkhus, I introduce thought as kamma. It is after having thought that we engage in an action physically, verbally, or mentally. Nibbedika Sutra. Anyway, only volitional activities produce karmic effect. The fifth is the aggregate of consciousness, Vijnanakam. It is also of 6 types. Now we can understand how they function. Sense organ, then receptive feel, consciousness means arising mentality or mind. I functions as the base or entry, a particular door, for receiving visual forms and thereby produce eye consciousness. The visual consciousness is just only awareness. Consciousness makes the seeing live, or the mind derived based on visual forms. Then ear functions as the base or entry for receiving sound and thereby produce auditory or ear consciousness, or the mind derived based on sound. Nose functions as the base of a particular door entry for receiving odors, and thereby produce olfactory or nose consciousness. The mind derived based on odors. Tongue functions as the base or entry for receiving taste or flavor, and thereby produce gustatory or tongue consciousness, or the mind derived based on taste. Body functions as the base or entry for receiving touch, and thereby produce tactile or body consciousness, or the mind derived based on tactile. The mind functions as the base, mind also considered to be faculty here, and it functions as the base or a window for receiving mental objects, ideas and thoughts, and thereby produces mental consciousness, or the mind derived based on mental objects. We will make it clear having an example. You know that the eye contacts a tree. Now you just imagine that now we can take an example so that we can make it clear having an example, right? We will make it further clear, right? You see that the eye contacts a tree, right? Eye is prasada rupa. Anyway, it contacts a tree, and a knowing surfaces as an eye consciousness, right? The consciousness emerged, right? The consciousness surfaced doesn't recognize an object, right? When eye contacts a tree, a particular awareness surfaces, right? A mind emerges, right? It's only a kind of awareness. It just marks the awareness of the presence of an object. Just say that a particular object is present in front of the eye. Oh, I get contacts with a particular object. That knowing is surface. Right? Then perception comes. Perception comes. Right? Sanya. Sanya or perceptions symbolize or characterize that particular knowing to be a tree. We understand the contact object is a tree with the help of sanya or perceptions, right? And some feelings too arises, either pleasing or unpleasing or neutral, whatever it can be. So now I think you can understand the consciousness is only particular awareness, right? Sort of knowing, right? So it is very clear that mind or consciousness cannot function alone, and it depends on matter, right? Eye is needed. Chakkung paticca rupeja chakku viññāna. Knowing can be surface. Perceptions, feelings, mental formations, when everything functions together, all right, then we can make certain idea regarding what we notice. Right? This whole process is right? When this particular whole process in progress is life. So if one clinging to these is considered to be upada. The existence of ongoing process of volition or mental formations is bhava, right? That means ongoing volitional process is considered to be bhava and life at present. And when it continues from life to life, that is considered to be sansaric life. Right? The function of five aggregates distinctively or collectively is changing, transitory, momentary process of impermanence. If something is not permanent, it is suffering. Yada nityam tan dukkha. Thus, clinging to five aggregates is suffering. And this is called sankhara dukkha. So that's why I told you that sankhara dukkha is connected with sort of philosophical meaning. All right. When deeply and realistically considering physiopsychological processes flowing. In conceptual world, we name it a self, I, me, mine, or a being, or sometimes we call it a sentient being. If one sees the truth of dukkha bound with life, thereby the individual also sees the arising of dukkha and the cessation of dukkha as well, and the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. Simply, ignorance is considered to be not knowing dukkha. If one sees dukkha, thereby wisdom awakens. Anyway, we have to see dukkha related to our life. And penetrating dukkha, satya. If one can very comprehensively understand dukkha satya, realizing the noble truth of suffering doesn't make life suffering or miserable. So we cannot consider Buddhism to be pessimistic, because you know that if you understand this particular reality objectively related to life, simply because of this particular understanding, life doesn't become suffering. Right? Instead, one can lead an unshaken or happy and peaceful life with that sound understanding of reality. So actually, no one can say that even though Buddhism talk about suffering and different kinds of bitter experiences related to life, that Buddhism is pessimistic. Or Buddhism is something about related to suffering. Even in medicine, you know that different dangerous illnesses are explained. Gravity of the illness is explained. Because of that, we cannot say that modern medicine is agony or kind of suffering or something painful or miserable. Now I'm again going to point out how consciousness surfaces. Right? You can see high consciousness supported with matter. That means brain, nerves, eye, those are matter, rupa. and feelings, perceptions, mental formations. Right? When you see a tree, eye consciousness arises. But anyway, you don't know that the particular object is to be a tree. It is identified significantly or separately to be a tree or this particular tree due to memory based on perceptions. And thereafter, we go for different types of mental formations, mental activities. So you can see that these 5 aggregates all the time they function together. Even though we talk separately, but when functioning, of course, we cannot identify these elements separately or distinctively. The eye works as a door. Then consciousness generates knowing. Eye is only a particular window through which consciousness focuses. Then consciousness generates. That particular consciousness generates sort of knowing. Knowing is not, that is kind of live, being live. There we do not have, when it comes to the consciousness alone, we don't know whether it is a tree or whatever. Particular seeing is surface. Then perceptions come and make the idea from our memory. We are guided. Now we are seeing this particular tree in this color and lot of information given. Then mental formations develops accordingly. Perceptions tell it is a tree. Mental formations helps to generate more ideas of concept, thoughts of concept of the tree. Feelings too involved here. If it is a mango tree, we get kind of pleasant feeling. Sometimes it is a particular tree which we do not like, with a lot of thorns and all. Then the feeling in all there would be bitter or unpleasant. If we have no any idea regarding specific, if we do not have a specific idea regarding the tree that we see, then the feelings would be most probably neutral. So actually, if we can understand this particular function, if somebody clings on this particular process to be my mind, or a particular individual is developed there, a particular ego is developed, that is called clinging. Seen by me, felt by me, these are my concepts, these are my ideas. Likewise, a particular ego. When a particular ego is developed based on all these phenomena, then automatically clinging takes place. That is identified to be upadana, and then in dukkha satya, it is considered to be sankhara dukkha. 5 aggregates of clinging. Aggregate of materiality, same as 28 kinds of matter. And second aggregate of feelings, same as mental factors, so feeling. Aggregate of perceptions, same as mental factors of perception. Aggregate of formation, same as remaining 50 mental factors. And aggregate of consciousness, same as 81 types of consciousness. So we can see, even though we just say the by using Panchaskandha or Panchakandha, we can use one or two words. But there you can see that very comprehensive Process is involved related to being of an individual. Right? That is what we can initially discuss regarding Dukkha Satya. Right? Teaching is learning. Teaching is learning. Now you can see teach, ing, teaching. Teaching is learning. When you analyze that particular sentence, you can understand teaching is the subject, is the verb, learning is the object. Right? You know that we use subject all the time. Subject is a noun. The object is a noun. Right? Having ing, making it a noun, we use both to be a subject and a verb. Now they enjoy dancing. They is the subject, enjoy is the verb, dancing is the object. When two verbs used together, the second becomes present participle. So anyway, it's a gerund. Would you mind opening the shutter? He suggested going to the cinema. Stop, finish, delay, postpone, fancy, imagine, consider, avoid, admit, deny, involve, practice. Normally, these words are followed by gerund. Please stop talking, start writing. You should stop smoking. I will talk to him once I have finished writing this letter. I'll talk to him once I have finished writing this letter. Now you can compare your mistakes. We can share the video so that you can further clarify and further understand watching the video. Has she finished cleaning the kitchen? Finished cleaning. Has finished the verb. Cleaning is the object. Object is a noun. She tried to avoid answering my question. I don't fancy going out in this scorching sun. Fancy is like. Fancy is similar to like. I don't like going out in this scorching sun. I don't fancy going out in this scorching sun. We will consider appointing you to the post. We will consider appointing you to the post. I can imagine you riding a bike. She admitted stealing the book. He denied doing it for the second time. They involve practicing a lot. I enjoy not having to get up early on Sundays. Right? Many of you had not translated this sentence, if I remember correct. I enjoy not having to get up early on Sundays. And these are, you can see a few phrasal verbs. Even these are followed by gerund. Give up, put off, carry on, go on, keep on. Have you given up smoking? We can't go on doing it further. We can't continue doing it further. We can't go on living like this. We must find a flat. Please don't keep on disturbing. Please don't keep on disturbing. With some verbs, we can use structure, verb, somebody, then ing. You can't stop me doing what I want. You can't stop me doing. Stop me doing. You can't stop me doing what I want. I can imagine someone riding a bike. Sorry to keep you waiting. For finished actions, you can have past participle. Nimal admitted having stolen the money. I really regret having said it. Can you please stop making so much noise? I always enjoy talking to him. He suggested going out for a walk. It was very funny. Nobody could stop laughing. I don't fancy going out in this rain. I should consider applying the job. Have you finished ironing yet? Have you finished ironing yet? ඔයා තාම iron කරලා ඉවර නැද්ද? Haven't you finished ironing yet කියලා අහන්නේ. We don't ask like that. When yet is used in questions, not is not used. Do you want to carry on working? I don't mind using the phone if you pay the bill. We put off conducting the meeting. Can you imagine anybody being so stupid? Would you mind turning up the radio? Turning up. Volume it up. Do you mind turning off the radio? Switch it off. He denied breaking my pen. These were the sentences that I sent you.